This episode is about underneath the Sphinx. So the entrance to under the Sphinx is a reasonable distance in front of the Sphinx. I think that the area where the entrance is probably where the Sphinx temple is currently now. Mind you, I could be wrong because the length and size of the pores has thrown me. It's not the same size that it was that I remember. Those pores stick out a lot longer than they did when I saw them. The entrance that I remember wasn't a door or an entranceway into a tunnel or anything like that. It was a large shaft that looked a bit like this picture that I'm putting on the video at the moment. It was sealed using a very, very large stone slab, and it actually sat inside the shaft on the shaft had like a little edge all around it, and it sat inside the shaft. We didn't want to make it very obvious where the entrance was. The shaft, it descended a long way. I'm going to try and guess, but as I've mentioned, I didn't have any somnambulant tape measures with me, so this is purely a guess. My guess is 15 to 20 stories down. So we would go down the shaft, we would just descend, like being in an elevator but without the box around us. At the bottom of this shaft, there is a brief little kind of tunnel, and then a small room, kind of like a little holding place. And this room is actually sealed at one end with some large blocks that we've made to look like a wall. And the reason for this is that if someone were to find the shaft, go down and get into that room, they would think they had found what the shaft was all about. One wall was actually not a real wall. It was a large piece of stone made to look like a wall. Anyway, from there was another hallway, and that went into another area, which was a larger room. Once again, that room was sealed at one end and made to look like it was a wall. So once in the tunnel at the opposite side, it was a reasonable walk. There was quite a lot of distance to make. And there were other tunnels coming off from there, which could be very confusing for people who didn't know exactly where they were going. So I'm just going to focus on where I was going. So I kept walking along until I got to a very large opening. It was filled with water, but there was a walkway on both sides of this. Let's say it looks like a large swimming pool. And in the center there is a stone box, and round the outside there is a walkway. And you could actually walk both sides of this big cavern area. It was a squarish cavern, and the walkways were reasonable, safe width, and then there was the water, and then there was the stone box in the center. Now this is quite important because what was there when we set it all up was a machine. If the water level got to a certain point, it would convert the water to a gas, steam I guess you'd call it, and it would go up through an escape vent, which wasn't particularly big, the vent, and it would go up, and we had quite a tall pipe that, of course, all our pipes were made of stone, that went up into the air, and there was a mechanism within it that the gas could get out, but even if the vent was covered with water, the water couldn't get in through that vent. And so, when the water levels rose over a certain point, this was where the water was drained from the tunnels, so it didn't get into the areas which were particularly important to us. And it kept things dry that needed to be kept dry. When the machine was operating, when we were setting it up, we needed access from both sides in order to get it in place and then later to remove it. So there's another hallway from this room at the opposite side, and we walk through that, and we come to other various rooms, and some of them are down a hallway, and they've got niches in them with large stone boxes, and others, there's just a niche where it is with the box in it. And we had a variety of different sizes of boxes, depending on what it was that we were storing in them. We used hard stone for our boxes, and we did not carve on the boxes. There are no inscriptions from us on the boxes. Anything that you may see on any boxes that are maybe granite boxes or harder, you will not find something from my people. We would, however, occasionally carve an instruction onto a wall where relevant. And the reason we did that was if it was a piece of equipment, for example, and we thought that maybe the person who might eventually find it might not have that knowledge, we would do a diagram so that they could understand what that piece of equipment was for. We didn't bother taking any of the large stone boxes either. For the things that were in there, we also had instructions in them as well. But when the time came, we took those away. They weren't carved on any walls, so we just took them with us. If anyone were to go down under the Sphinx, they might be a bit disappointed. The area where the pumping machine was is very beautiful. I think that's probably the most exciting thing that people would find if they went under the Sphinx, because we have already taken away all of the stuff that I guess a lot of people would have liked to have got their hands on. So the bits of technology, the information about Tantal, the secrets of medicines and vibrations, and a lot of scientific information was in there. And there was also a lot of stuff to help repopulate a lot of, let's call it seed DNA if we needed it. If anyone were to go down under the Sphinx, they might be a bit disappointed. Unless, of course, the dynastic Egyptians got in there and they put some stuff in there, and that's always a possibility because they were very keen on finding anything to do with the ancients.